I realize this might make me weird, but I actually don't have a ton of complaints about the Switch Online service. I know that's strange. I'm a bit of a pariah on that one, but hey, this is a hill I am willing to die on. What's going on, everyone? I am Jay. The channel is Square Pegs. We are talking video games twice a week on Mondays and Thursdays. Hey, if you're new around here, this is your first time on the channel, please consider subscribing. Hit that button down below. And now, let's head over to the NES and take a look at the different games I think should be added to the service. I remember when I got this one, my mom actually found a store that was going out of business in Massachusetts and bought me a pile of NES games for Christmas that I still don't understand how she was able to afford it. I got this, a Stein Axe, along with a ton of other games like Blaster Master for Christmas that year, and it was just overwhelming and wonderful. This game is something that I think needs to be remembered more fondly, or at least recognized for how neat it is. It's a 2D beat-em-up platformer, but the game controls really well and it looks great. There's a lot of really neat enemy designs in here, and really cool upgrades as you go. It was kind of like Ghouls and Ghosts or Ghosts and Goblins in that regard, but doing its own thing and standing on its own. I really like the design of this game. I think it looks and sounds great, and I think it would be really cool to have this online, because this is a classic game that I think more people need to appreciate and have the chance to play. We have no shortage of sports games on the Switch Online service, but we are missing what I think is the king of all NES sports games, and that is, of course, Blades of Steel. This is the iconic hockey game for the NES. I know a lot of people love ice hockey, myself included, but when I think of hockey on the NES, I think of Konami's Blades of Steel. With wonderful digitized voices, a bit of a loose interpretation of what the rules of hockey are, but still some great gameplay and lots of wonderful graphics throughout the game. It is an absolutely fun time to play, and it holds up really well to this day. Now, it doesn't have the complexity of some of the EA NHL games from the mid-90s or anything like that, but it is still an incredibly fun game that has a lot of challenge and a lot of great animation. Blades of Steel is a classic, and I would love to have this on the NES Online service, because I would love to be able to play this with my friends online. I think that would be incredible. I used to rent Facsanido all the time from our Westport, Massachusetts video store, and I fell in love with it early. It was a game that I had seen in Nintendo Power, and I was kind of just enamored with the look of it. It felt a little bit like Adventures of Link and a little bit like Wizards and Warriors, and while it does borrow a little bit from those games, it's decidedly its own thing. Despite the fact that it has some similarities to those, it's so unique and so different that it has its own charm and its own style, and I really appreciate that. It's got great character design, great enemy designs, the environments are big and their sprite work is fantastic, and while it is a linear game, you do feel like you are exploring this huge world and just making waves through the world of Facsanido. Gotta thank John Riggs for doing this game on Twitch the other night for the reminder about its existence, and honestly, Kickle Cubicle, what a great game. Fantastic puzzler that I am shocked that people, like me, in fact, don't remember more regularly. It looks great with fantastic sprite work and character design, and it's got an overall challenge that will be as hard as you let it be. It is not something that's going to be overwhelming, but if you are having an off day, it is going to give you a run for your money. This game also has fantastic music, wonderful animations, and really, really solid design throughout. Kickle Cubicle is a fantastic puzzle game. I really want Baseball Stars on Nintendo Switch Online. Now look, I know a lot of folks don't dig sports games, but Baseball Stars kind of transcends. It is such a good game. It has fantastic mechanics. For something that is over 30 years old, for it to play as good as it does to this day, and to look as good as it does to this day, is just kind of mind-blowing, but that's SNK for you. I think living in a world where you're able to play online, and you're able to get these games to work, to play online multiplayer with games like this, I really think that sports games are kind of a natural fit, and there's so many classic NES sports games that could be added, but Baseball Stars, near the top of the list. Right there with Blades of Steel for me. I think this would be a wonderful addition and would be so much fun to play. I could see people setting up entire seasons running Baseball Stars. I was one of those kids that loved Powerblade when I was growing up. I thought it was a fantastic game, and I thought it was wildly underserved by the vast majority of people, and the reason I really want this on the NES Online service, one, it's a great platformer, and there is no shortage of fantastic platformers on the NES, and I do think we're actually kind of underserved by them on the Switch Online service. But on top of that, this is one of those games that is so expensive now in the secondary market that it'd be nice to get this added so people wouldn't have to pay an arm and a leg to be able to play this legally. It controls great, it looks great, it's a lot of fun to play, and there's a ton of different options on here. It's a really neat take on the Mega Man formula. You know, you have stage selection, there's all kinds of different enemies in there that you're going to have to defeat. Powerblade, one of my favorite games on the NES, it absolutely should be in the NES Online service. God, I love Jackal! Jackal's such a cool game. This, yeah, okay, now this is a Konami game, so the chances of this actually coming onto the NES Online service are low, I understand that, but The game is too good for me to just ignore and just put to one side because, oh, it's so cool. This is like the ultimate NES action game to me. This is perfect for the NES. You play as a tiny little Jeep, you got guns, you got rockets, you got grenades, you're rescuing people. It is like the most basic gameplay experience, but it is so much fun and it has an insane challenge level that is just awesome to play. I would love to see this on Switch because I think this is something that people will just fall in love with all over again, and it's something that I think people today that have never played it before would dig the hell out of. Shatterhand is another game on the NES that I fell in love with early as a kid. I used to rent it from our, again, Westport, Massachusetts video store. You're gonna hear that a lot when I talk about the NES. That place was like Mecca for me. And this game was really unique. I felt it was an interesting spin on a trope that had been done to death by Mega Man and made it its own thing by making things so up close, but giving you those little robot sidekicks that offered you some semblance of a ranged attack. You have a hand that shatters. You punch things. Remember that bit in Community where Troy and Abed had Kick Puncher? That's kind of what Shatterhand is. He's basically Kick Puncher, but he just punchers, I guess. The game controls really well, and the look of the game is just fantastic. It's something that I think a lot of people could stand to discover because, again, much like Powerblade, this is one of those games that is just shooting up in value, and people are going to be unable to play this legally without the option of playing it on Switch Online. This one's a really strange oversight to me because, I mean, we've already got the first game on there, so why haven't we added Star Tropics 2 Zelda's Revenge on here yet? Now, I don't like this one as much as the original Star Tropics. I think that original was kind of lightning in a bottle, and you're not going to find anything quite that incredible, but Zelda's Revenge is really good. It does take the Star Tropics formula, kind of turn it on its head a little bit. You get sucked into like a book, and you go back in time, and it's, you know, Zelda's looking for revenge. I mean, it's right in the title. I mean, it's not that hard to figure out. I'm not spoiling anything there. If you can't figure out that a dude named Zelda is seeking revenge on our hero Mike, I would invite you to work on your reading comprehension skills. Now, the controls in this one are a little bit different. You're actually able to move at diagonals, which does give you a bit of an advantage because you can both move and throw at a diagonal, but your enemies cannot. So you're able to actually kind of position yourself a little bit better and not have to worry so much about getting hurt. Now, it doesn't look quite as good. It doesn't control quite as well. Those diagonal movements do make jumps a little bit more finicky in this game, but I still like it, and I would love to be able to close out the Star Tropics series on the NES Online service. Hey, I didn't rent this one. I actually owned this one as a kid, and I loved Bobble. This was one of my absolute favorite games, even though I was and am terrible at it. It's something that I just fell head over heels in love with. I loved the characters of Bob and Bob. I loved their look. I loved the overall simplicity of the game while having an insane difficulty to it, where if your reflexes were just a little bit off that day, you were going to be having a rough time. It's an iconic game that people used to play regularly on the NES, and I don't understand why it's not on the service already. This is something I think that would be served very well. I know we got Bobble 4 on the Switch, so maybe that's a reason we haven't added it yet, but I still think that Bobble itself stands alone and stands strong on its own two little dinosaur feet, and it should be on the service. There you have it, folks. 10 games that I think should be on the NES service. I mean, in a world where we're getting things like The Immortal and Fire and Ice, both games I actually dig, I think there are definitely some bigger name games out there that we could get added that I think would add more bang for the buck for what the NES Online service does. Please hit like, please subscribe down below if you're new around here, you've not already done so. And hey, if you dig the work I do around here and you're in a position to do so, please consider becoming a monthly Patreon sponsor, or at the very least, check out our merchandise. Links to both pages will be in the pinned comment down below, as well as links to all of my stuff on social media. Hey, thanks for hanging out today. Thanks for talking video games. We'll be back later on in the week to talk about some more stuff. Until next time, remember to play more games, stay square, and take care. I'll talk to you soon.